At GE Aerospace, we turn what ifs into what's next. Because when the right idea catches the wind, there's no limit to how far the next generation will go.
Welcome to this special edition of Aviation Week's Check 6 podcast, coming to you from the Smithsonian's National Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C. I'm Joe Anselmo. On July 28th, Air and Space will be opening 5 new galleries, the penultimate step in an 8-year renovation that is entirely reimagining one of the world's most visited museums. In advance of that, Museum Director Chris Browne has agreed to give Check 6 listeners a private tour of the new galleries ahead of the opening. He joins me here. And for the first time, you can also watch this Check 6 podcast on Aviation Week's YouTube channel to see what Chris is talking about. For our listeners, there's a link in your podcast description to the YouTube channel. To our YouTube viewers, welcome to Check 6. Chris, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be with you, Joe, and your listeners as well.
Thanks
Appreciate it.
And our viewers.
Yes, absolutely. Viewers as well. My apologies.
So new to me.
Yes.
Thanks for making the time. A quick tutorial for our listeners as we start. The Air and Space Museum is actually 2 museums. It's 1 museum, but 2 buildings. It's this building, which opened 49 years ago near the Capitol, and then 30 miles west of here is the Hazy Annex, which is houses the much bigger airplanes. It has room for a space shuttle, an SR-71, the Enola Gay, a Concorde. Together, the museums draw more than 3.5 million people a year, and as soon as your renovation here is done, I expect that number is going to skyrocket even higher.
Indeed, it continues to be one of the most popular museums, not just in this country, but in the world.
Okay. And Chris, you walked us through before we sat down. This is not a touch-up. This is a complete rebuild of this museum, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. And I guess I would encourage your viewers and listeners to recognize that it's not the same old museum. 40% of the artifacts now on display are in the museum for the first time. They've either come from the collection or on loan or from acquisitions we've made. So we are trying to tell the story as it continues to unfold, but in ways that are even more impactful with our visitors and connecting in ways that they may not be used to, including the floor that we're under us right here in the Boeing Milestones of Flight Hall. It's a very different look and feel, and even this floor is part of an exhibit. Whether it's apparent or not, we're actually on a pulsar map, which is a way of identifying yourself. Frank Drake figured this out back in '70, how you can figure out your place in the universe based on pulsating stars in their final death throes. And knowing that, it's like sort of positioning yourself, if you were a mariner with the lighthouses, we can find our place here in the gallery based on pulsars at these locations.
And just sitting here, I'm a little awestruck, even though I've been here before it was remodeled. That's an Apollo lander behind us, correct?
Correct. There were 12 built, and this is one of the 12. It was originally going to fly low Earth orbit missions. It was repurposed to do Earth and ground testing, but that is what we would say a full-up round.
Okay, up right above you is the X-1, which Chuck Yeager flew at supersonic speed in 1947.
Yep, correct. And it's shaped, as you would expect, like a bullet, and a very audacious flight, like so many that have been done here over the years, but demonstrating that supersonic flight was, in fact, possible and survivable.
And up above me from 20 years earlier is the Spirit of St. Louis, which Charles Lindbergh famously flew across the Atlantic in 1927.
Indeed, 33 and a half hours. He was sleep deprived when he started the flight. And, it was that flight that really, aside from being greeted by 150,000 people at Le Bourget, France, it really closed the gap, between the old world and the new world in a very demonstrable way. 33 hours connecting the two.
Okay, and speaking of connections, when you were walking us through, you made some great connections of the first, 69 years of flight? Or?
Yeah, we have here on display in one of our galleries, in the Wright Brothers Gallery, the original Wright flyer that Orville Wright flew December 17th, 1903. The first flight in that airframe was 12 seconds and 120 feet, and proved then this concept that you could actually defy gravity. You could use powered flight to leave the Earth. And when you think that only 66 years separate that first powered flight from the first footsteps on the moon, that's remarkable. And so what we have here in the Air and Space Museum are those various aircraft and spacecraft and objects that some incredibly courageous and heroic people used to sort of make that journey. And the X-15 above us, for instance, flown in 1959. Neil Armstrong had 6 flights in that airframe. And it was designed to test this boundary between atmosphere and space in advance of space flight. You had to know, just as Chuck Yeager had to prove you could survive at supersonic speeds, that aircraft and the pilots that flew it had to prove, in fact, that it was possible to fly at Mach 6 and survive and fly into space. And so, as I mentioned, Neil Armstrong had 6 flights in that. And I love to tell the story that because he was one of the 12 pilots of the X-15 that actually got into space, crossed that 50-mile boundary, he was given astronaut wings. And so fast forward a bit, he reports to NASA for his astronaut class, and he already has his astronaut wings. To me, that's the ultimate bragging rights.
I had not heard that before.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the new galleries. You have one just dedicated looking to the future, and that's got a lot of new material in it, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of museums, and even ourselves, sort of have tended to have this retrospective look. And as well we should for events like, Destination Moon and the Apollo program and these incredible things of our past that have informed the future. But I think it's really important for visitors to be able to see what's happening now, to be able to go to a museum and see some of the most current stories as they're unfolding. And so we have, for the first time, a gallery titled Futures in Space, right here off of this gallery, where it asks the basic questions: who goes to space, why go to space, and what do you do when you get there? And so through a variety of different artifacts and objects, begins to sort of try to answer that question. It invites our visitors to do so. There's a space in there for astronauts and other visitors to have discussion, to try to begin to answer these questions, none of which have firm, concrete answers. But it's open-ended by design, so that in addition to having a Falcon grid fin in that display now, as other technologies develop, we'll be able to introduce them into the gallery, swap out, so that that gallery will continue to have a forward-looking future theme that some of our galleries don't by definition.
So tell us about the grid fin, because you were showing that to us, so we'll be able to show it to our...
Yeah, I mean, I think for many of your viewers and listeners, we recall not that long ago when the first booster stuck a landing. And this idea of reusability, which is so fundamental to the space program now and so essential, understood these companies, SpaceX and Blue Origin and others, that to do this efficiently, you have to figure out how to reuse and return for use things like boosters. And so the grid fin off of the Falcon boosters are what guide it down to, say, pinpoint landing, like right here even. I mean, not in some far off field, but it is done with incredible precision. And we have an interactive in there that actually allows visitors to understand conceptually how those grid fins, as they pivot on the booster, are able to guide it as it's falling, even though it doesn't have wings, to what is a perfect landing. And so we use interactives throughout the museum like that to try to demonstrate concepts that may not be readily apparent just from viewing an object.
And then you have a Blue Origin capsule in there.
We do.
That's a mock-up, but you're going to get a real one eventually, right?
Yeah, I mean, again, the beauty of that gallery is that for now we've got the mock-up, which was used for testing and design by Blue Origin. But once the flown capsule is available and completes its flights, it is bound to come here and we will swap it out. And so again, as the stories unfold, we will continue to introduce objects and artifacts that people are seeing unfold before their eyes in the media.
On the flip side of the future, one of your new galleries is focused on World War I.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about what's in there.
So back to our timeline, when you think that World War I was barely a decade after the first powered flight. And so it became a real crucible of aviation at its earliest time, as applied certainly in a military context. And so they were really, to use a trite phrase, pressing the envelope on what was possible with aircraft. So you see incredible development and technologies come to fruition and use in that period. And we have some of the most iconic objects and artifacts from that period, including the only Sopwith Camel remaining that was built by the Sopwith Aircraft Company. A remarkable artifact. And then we also have, speaking of interactives, you know, one of the things that they endeavored and successfully designed in World War I aviation is the idea of shooting a bullet through a rotating prop, which when you think of it is like, well, how do you do that without shooting off the prop? Well, this interactive upstairs in that gallery demonstrates to visitors the technology, all the cams and rods and push rods that had to come together to actually fire the bullet and time it so it would go between the props. It's fascinating, but it demonstrates like, okay, I guess that's how they did it.
Yeah, that was pretty advanced technology for more than 100 years ago.
Indeed.
We got a peek through the curtain too. You're working on a World War II gallery that opens next July 1 when this renovation is complete, right?
Indeed. That gallery, World War II in aviation, the J. Kislak World War II gallery. And then we have several other incredible galleries, National Science Foundation, Discovering Our Universe, Textron, How to Fly, which is a very interactive gallery. We have like a wind tunnel that you can walk into. It's a real learning space. So each of these galleries have a different look and feel, and in many cases a different purpose. And so we hope that our visitors, after they come here, will be able to really experience aviation and aerospace in just its full gamut, its full history, its full capacity, and come out, certainly as I did after visiting a year after this museum opened in 1977, inspired. And just a quick personal story, when I came here with no aspiration to fly, the DC-3 that I saw, this air building had just opened a year prior. I did what I hope all our visitors do, which is sort of see themselves in the story in some way. And I walked out those doors, and I'm true as I sit here, committed to getting my pilot's license that I had within a year. And it set me off on a professional career that's led me through various walks of aviation. So I know the power of a place like this, the impact that it can have.
Chris, for our podcast audience that's not in the DC region, what does it cost to bring a family of 5 to visit here?
Well, are you flying? Are you driving? And are you at an Airbnb? The expense is there. To come to this museum, it's free. And that harkens back to the fact that this is the People's Museum. This belongs to the nation, and to provide free access is so fundamental to making that access possible for everybody. We do have a ticketing system. They're free, but in order that we not oversubscribe the building and make sure that people have a quality experience, we do ask that people go online and download tickets, and there's no limit to that. Plan ahead during the busy times. We can become fully subscribed, but our goal is to get as many people in here to enjoy and be inspired by this incredible collection.
Final question, the Hazy Museum I mentioned, there's an SR-71 when you walk in there. I think it's fascinating. They flew it from Los Angeles Air Force Base to Dulles Airport in 1 hour and 4 minutes, which is astounding.
It really is. It'll take me longer driving home in traffic.
Exactly. There's also a beautiful space wing in there. Mm-hmm. There's a bill that just went through Congress, that was passed by Congress, that appropriates $85 million to take that space shuttle out of that wing and move it to Houston, Texas. Are we going to walk into the space wing of the Hazy Museum and just find a big empty shell?
Not if I have any ability to influence that decision, and others. And it fundamentally, it goes to what is the national collection. And the Smithsonian was established by statute in large part to collect, curate, and steward what is the national collection, what I think of as the nation's DNA. And to do that authentically and accurately in a way that is timeless and stands the test of time, you can't sort of pull from the collection. The space shuttle discovery is a fundamental and essential part of that story that we tell to the nation and that we share with the nation. So to me, to remove the discovery for points elsewhere would really be in opposition to the very purpose of the Smithsonian and what we're trying to do on behalf of the entire nation.
Okay. Well, on that note, Chris Browne, thank you so much for your tour and your time.
Great.
Really appreciate it. Best of luck on the July 28th opening and the 50th anniversary next year.
Well, thank you, Joe, and my thanks to you listeners and viewers, and congratulations on this podcast now being viewable as well as heard.
Well, thank you. That is a wrap for this special edition of Check 6. A thanks to our videographer, Jeremy Kariuki, who is here with me, and to Guy Fernyhough, our podcast editor in London. If you haven't already, be sure to follow Check 6 on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen, so you never miss an episode. If you're watching on YouTube, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more aviation content. Have a great week, and thank you for your time.
Imagination in flight begins with a sheet of paper, a couple folds, and a simple throw. But for some, the exhilaration and wonder behind flight never fades. At GE Aerospace, we turn what ifs into what's next. Because when the right idea catches the wind, there's no limit to how far the next generation will go.